Declare it. I am a blessing. All right. Come on, we got to change a culture in Southern Ohio, one that's depressed and down. Come on, we're fighting against a whole culture as we praise God today. You know, we don't have anything to be depressed about. You don't have anything to be upset and down about. You have plenty to eat. You got friends. You probably had to go to a closet and pick out what shoes to wear. Come on, I travel all over the world. I can tell you, we are blessed. We're blessed, blessed, blessed. We're so blessed, we don't even know how blessed we are. Remind yourself, stir yourself up. Look around, 360-degree circle. Welcome everyone that's sitting close to you today. Let them know that you appreciate them being with you at Open Door. If you're watching online, thank you for being a part of this service today. We welcome you. Thank you for being in this service via your computer. We appreciate you being here today. If you want to go to Facebook, go to Open Door Ohio. Leave us a comment. God bless you. We're in the middle. Actually, we're past the middle. We're in the midst of, let's say it this way, if you look to the screens, a 12-week series that I've called the 12 Elements of Faith. This basically came out of a time when I was on vacation, actually, and the Lord began to download to me as I prayed about faith. I just wondered, what is faith? We talk about faith. We throw the word around a lot. You know, just have faith, brother. Just have faith, or I've got faith. We have the faith movement, books on faith and everything. And I'm not sure that even in the midst of that we've dissected it totally and tried to figure out what it means in our daily life. There are two things about faith that we use every day. Number one, I've talked about this. This is just a bit of review. Number one, the number one thing that we've got to believe about faith is, number one, we have to believe this every day, that God is in control. That's kind of like every day of my life. I have to believe. I have to consciously believe. I have to actively believe. Because if you get most of your information from Fox News to CNN to MSNBC to CBS, I don't care what newspaper, when you hear all the bad stuff that's going on in the world, it testifies that things are out of control. But as believers with our worldview, we've got to actively remind ourselves every day, God is in control. You have to pray every day. You got to talk to God every day. You don't have to get on your knees and use King James English to talk to God. You can talk to God whenever and however you want. They say taking prayer out of schools. They've never taken prayer out of schools. It's impossible to take prayer out of schools, because to get prayer out of schools, you'd have to take people out of schools. Don't worry about it. Just talk to God. He'll answer you in the hallway. He'll answer you in the frozen section of Kroger's. He will answer you in your car. You can talk to him. He will hear you. When you talk to God, just talk to him. And as you talk to him, you're hearing yourself and being reminded in your spirit that, God, I believe you're in control. I believe this is something that's going to work out. Which leads me to the second most important thing about daily faith. It's this. You've got to believe that all things are going to work for your good. And sometimes that's even a tougher sell. To believe that God's in control, okay, God's big and God's cool and God's creator. Maybe that's not the most difficult. Maybe the most difficult for us is to believe that what you're going through right now is going to work out for your benefit, because you can't see any good coming out of it. You wonder why in the world you've had to deal with this, why in the world you've had to put up with this. And you may look at your life and look at circumstances and you think there is no possible way. There's no possible way that this could work out for my benefit. And that's when we have to walk by faith and not by sight. Now, taking those two most important aspects of faith, I began to think and try to dissect faith, and I came up with 12 elements of faith. Today, we're going to talk about the 9th element of faith, which is patience. All right, now there's one of two reactions. Either you just turned me off, or you've thought, okay, I need this. I thought about scenarios about how to pray for you at the end of the teaching, and I thought of one scenario. I thought, okay, I'm going to have everybody stand up who feels like that they need more patience, and then, however many people would stand up. And then I was going to have everyone else standing pray for those sitting because they have a spirit of lying on them. Because there's probably not anybody in this room that couldn't use more patience. So because of that, patience is always something good you can preach on because it applies to everyone. The bad news is you never really have enough of it, so you're constantly striving for more. And I want to understand that. I don't want to beat you over the head with a message, but I do want to help encourage you and teach you, listen to this, that when you walk by faith, God's in control. It's going to work out for my good. That you have got to apply patience. It is an element of faith that says, I believe it's going to work out, but it may not work out this afternoon. I believe it's going to turn out for good, but it may not show itself tomorrow. That we've got to have patient faith. I'm not sure that we have this patient faith, fortitude, forbearance, and endurance. When I look at American Christianity, it's just a part of our culture. I'm not trying to beat us up. It's the way we are. We like drive-through. We watch a TV show, and in 60 minutes, we have a huge problem that seems unsolvable, and then it gets solved by CSI by 10 o'clock at night so we can go to bed. We want our problem solved now. We want our food cooked now. We want our homes built now. We want things now, and so we get impatient, and I see this in people's spiritual journey. I talked to someone this week who's not from this region, and they said, it's interesting, church hopping is like a sport down there, isn't it? I said, I've been here for 22 years. I can tell you, it's like a sport. People jump from church to church, and I believe part of it is because we have a lack of patience. We don't understand that when you plant an oak tree, you're not going to have a hardwood forest by the end of the year. In fact, I believe there are many things you're doing in your life right now that you'll never receive the full reward, but your grandkids will. They're going to sit in the shade of the oak tree that Grandpa planted. In fact, I believe that not everything in our life we should reap in our life. We need to reap some of those rewards when we get to heaven. Others of those rewards will be reaped by our children and grandchildren. The revelation just dawned on me. The reason Nikki and I got married is not just so we could be blessed, it's so we could raise up a blessed group of people. And as our family expands, we want to expand it with God's blessing. That just simply means marriage just isn't about making each other happy. It's about doing a long-term work on earth. So there has to be an element of patience, in your faith. So that you apply your faith and you stick to it. You don't go actively involved in a ministry and then 6 months later, I'm tired of that. I think I'm going to move on to something else. It's kind of like planting a tree and then deciding you want it over here in 6 months, so you uproot it and you plant it here. And then after about a year, you don't like it there, so you're going to uproot it and plant it over here. How many people know if the tree doesn't die, it will never grow because it's been uprooted too many times? There is an element of patience that has to be in our faith. Faith long term. Now this goes against a lot of charismatic Pentecostal type of Christianity because we love explosions. We love breakthroughs. We love hilarity. We want it now. We love the burst of excitement. We want this great breakthrough, but there are things in your life you're not going to get this great breakthrough. You're going to have a long journey, and at the end of that long journey, you can plant your flag on top of the mountain you conquered. But you're not going to look back and say there was one single day when I had this great monumental breakthrough. No, it was a long, arduous journey to your victory, to your deliverance. Maybe stop smoking, maybe stop drinking. Maybe kicking some other habit like drugs or being able to conquer fear or some attitudinal thing like jealousy. Maybe there's not going to be some magic moment when you get anointed with oil and boom, God takes it away. We love it when it happens, but I just know for myself, usually that boom is accompanied now by a long journey to my victory. The boom is just kind of like the rocket that takes off of the launching pad, but then after that there's a long journey that follows. Patience must be a part of your faith. In Hebrews 6:12, look at the screen, it says that you do not become sluggish. Slug. There's just nothing. I mean, maybe you're into creatures like that. That's cool. But slugs, come on. It's like they have no form. They have no grace. They have nothing but a slimy blob of trail that they leave across your sidewalk. How many people ever stepped on a slug barefoot? Ooh, yeah, that's wonderful. Do you know you can become like a spiritual slug? You just kind of, no definition, no grace, no beauty, just kind of rolling around, leaving a slimy trail wherever you've been. Look at it. That you do not become sluggish, like a slug, but imitate those who through faith and patience inherit the promises. How do you inherit the promise? Through faith and what? Patience. It's interesting, this verse says that faith alone is not enough. You can read faith books, you can hear faith teachings, and you can get all excited about faith, but your faith is not enough. Because if your faith does not have an element of patience about it, you'll get all excited about Jesus for a week. Hello, I've been here for 22 years, guys. I've pastored thousands of people. I've seen them come and I've seen them go. I've had thousands of people walk in this church, get excited about things for 2 weeks, 2 months, but they have no patience to accompany their faith. And because of that, they are here for a little while, then they're gone. Just like Jesus talked about the seed that goes on shallow soil. It comes to life for a little while, but then there's a time when life happens and we become impatient and we just kind of die out. Do not let that happen to you. Are you hearing me today? Do not let that happen to you. Do not let your impatience steal your inheritance. We talk about the devil stealing our seed or the devil stealing our inheritance or the devil came in. Most of the time it's not the devil, it's us. Impatience steals your inheritance. Look at this second scripture. James 1:3-4 says, knowing that the testing of your faith produces patience. So we have faith, and that faith gets tested, and that produces patience. And look what patience gives you. But let patience have its perfect work. This is why we all need patience, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking nothing. There's a state in your spiritual journey that God wants to get you where you are perfect, complete, and you feel like I lack nothing. But you'll never get there if you don't have this ninth element of faith that's called patience. It's going to take time. How many people know this is kind of the cartoon of your life? If you're on the camera, go ahead and show that screen if you haven't got it there already. God grant me patience. Hurry up. How many people know that your patience gets tested in situations like this? Has God ever revealed to you your impatience at a red light? No, not the one you're stopped at, the one the person in front of you stops at who's texting. And they haven't seen it turn green yet. Have you ever noticed every time you're in a hurry, the guy that drives that truck is in front of you? Or have you ever noticed every time you're in a hurry and you're driving back these country roads, that's the day the farmer decides, I need to move my combine. Or that's the day that the state is out mowing the sides of the roads. Or that's the day that you just happen to get it perfectly timed to get behind the school bus that stops, 13 times down the street and has no conscience. Some drivers have no conscience. Like when I'm driving slow vehicles, I can't help myself. I pull over and let people around. Some drivers have no conscience. Have you ever noticed that? They just drive and they can have 200 cars behind. They're not going to pull over. It's that moment that we start really realizing our impatience. Have you ever heard of stalactites and stalagmites? Look at this one. Only 10,000 more years and we'll be together forever, my darling. Some things just take time. I like this one. How many people have ever lost your patience and thought that that was spiritual? Sometimes we get mad, we want to call it righteous indignation. It's like, okay, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe you just lost your patience and you got angry. I love that picture. I don't know why. Just that dog looking at that bone. How many people feel like that sometimes you've got like a doggy biscuit on your nose and God won't let you have it? You got a dream, you got an idea, maybe it's about your marriage, it's about a spouse, or maybe it's about a financial idea, financial breakthrough, but it's going to take patience in order to inherit that. This is my favorite one right here. The polar bear has the seal in that block of ice, and he's blow drying it to melt that ice away because he's ready for dinner. You know, some things just take time. And then finally, this one, patience. It's like my car keys, often lost and found in the strangest places. Patience is necessary. I've been inspired really by this lady right here, Diana Nyad. 60 years old. I know there's been a little controversy. People are saying there's no way she could have done it or whatever. Well, you know, there was a team of 40 people, you know, that was surrounding her the whole time. If there was cheating going on, it would have been impossible with that team of people. Let's not take this away. What an incredible feat. Since 1978, this lady has tried 5 times to make the swim from Cuba to the southern tip of the Keys in Florida. 5 times. You know how old she is? 60 years old. At 60 years old, having failed, I think 4 previous times, this was her 5th attempt. Having failed 4 times, she says, I'm going back in the water. The first time, the seas were so high, she became disoriented. They had to pull her out of the water. The second time that she tried, there was a lightning storm, and she had to be pulled out of the water. The last time, her 4th attempt when she failed, she got more than halfway. But the jellyfish stings all over her body, but specifically the ones actually that stung in her mouth, her tongue, had swollen up. She could not breathe, and they had to pull her out of the water. Even in the 53 hours that she swam over 100 miles, because she took in so much salt water, she became nauseated and threw up and could not eat and could not drink for an extended period of time. And during that time, while she's swimming, she sang lullabies to herself to try to calm her down, to be patient. One stroke after another, one stroke after another. 100 hours, 53 hours later, 100 miles later, she crawled up on the beach. You see, there are some things about patience that we need to understand. Here are 3 preliminary truths. These are in your notes, but I also have them on the screen. Here's just 3 preliminary truths. And here's where we're going with this teaching today. I'm going to give you these 3 preliminary truths about patience, and then I'm going to give you 10 basic techniques to help you extend your patience or to work on your patience. And how many people, well, you know, I can do the same thing. Everybody raise your hand that needs more patience. Now start praying for the people that didn't. Because, you know, we all need more patience. So we'll get to those 10 techniques. But first, let me say these 3 things about patience to make sure we understand what we're talking about. Just because I say patience doesn't necessarily mean we know what each other's talking about. Truth number 1, there is more than one type of patience. There's more than one type of patience. It's listed there, I think, in your notes. But there's a first type of patience, is patience with activities. Now, how many people believe that you have patience when it comes like to working on something, an activity? Yeah, some of you guys that are really good carpenters, you have patience. I don't have that. Mike reminded me of that the other day, Mark Salvatore. He said, you're a pretty good carpenter, but I noticed something about you. You get about halfway through, and then you want to quit. You not quit, but you want to get it done. It's like, that is the story of my life. Get it done. And he's right. I don't have enough patience with activities to be a really good carpenter. I just kind of do things and it's done. I'm moving on. But how many people are not like that? You have a tendency to work on a motor, to work on a project, and you sewing, knitting, whatever. Oh, by the way, anyone here that does crochet, you've got that. used to watch my grandma and think, how in the world does she think that's fun? It's a patience with activities. You're going to work on something, you'll take your time with it, and you do not lose patience. How many people have that with activities, right? Probably some of you people that are skilled and craftsmen, that type of thing. The second type, what's it say there in your notes? Situations. Oh, okay. Well, this is a different type of patience, because one thing about being patient with activities that's on your side is you're in control. But in order to have a patience about situations, this is when it's out of your control and you just got to wait and do nothing until it changes. This is like, when it's raining and you know you got something to do outside and you got to sit there and wait till it quits raining. This is something where, men experience quite often, where you're waiting on your wife to get ready. It's patience with the situation. Someone else or somebody else or something else is out of your control, and you've got to wait until that event. You got to wait until that situation comes around to your liking. Now, how many people feel like you have pretty good patience when it comes to waiting on events? Raise your hand. Okay. You have patience. You can wait. How many people, I'm interested in this, how many people would say that you have patience with yourself when you're working on something, but you have impatience with situations when you got to wait on somebody else? Raise your hand. How many people are 0 for 2? Thank you. I want to make sure I'm in the right bunch. All right, number 3. What's number 3? Patience. Patience with people. Now, I got to admit, I probably have pretty good patience with people. I would admit my impatience here. Patience with people is I'll let people screw up. And sometimes it even looks like they're taking advantage of me, but I've got optimism about it that I think they're going to be okay. I'm going to stick with them. There comes a time when you just have to say enough's enough. I realize that. But a patience with people is that you put up with other people's faults. Sometimes you're okay to let people be imperfect and to let them make mistakes or have faults or be different than you without you freaking out too much about it. How many people feel like that you have a pretty good patience with people? Raise your hand. Now, everybody help me here. How many people feel like you have the first type of patience? Patience with activities. Raise your hand. You're a craftsman. Okay, good. How many people feel like you have pretty good patience with situations? You can wait on things to happen and develop and you don't get in a hurry. Good. How many people feel like you have patience with people? Raise your hand. How many people feel like that you're 0 for 3? Okay, it's all right. How many people feel like you're 3 for 3? Okay, there are a few glorified angels among us. Praise God. Oh, yeah, my wife's raising her hand. Oh, like I said, that spirit of lying. I have to deal with that today. Here's preliminary truth number 2. Patience is active, not passive. Now listen to me very clearly. The reason that I put Diana Nyad on our screen today and talked about her is because I wanted you to get a picture of her swimming one stroke at a time against currents, against wind, weather, jellyfish, against all these obstacles. I want you to get a picture of that. Why? Because patience is about endurance. When the Bible uses the word patience in the English, the Greek word is endurance. It means you're going to continue until you win. So that's why it says truth number 2, patience is active, not passive. I probably told you this before. Did you hear about the hillbilly whose house was burning down? He's sitting under a tree in the shade watching his house burn down. Neighbor comes by and says, "Sir, your house is burning down." The hillbilly says, "Yep." He says, "Aren't you going to do anything about it?" He says, "I am doing something about it." The guy says, "You're underneath this tree. You're doing nothing about it." He says, "Nope, I've been praying for rain for 2 hours." How many people know that's a passive definition of patience? I'm going to sit here and do nothing. In fact, I think a lot of times when people say, "Well, I'm just going to wait on God," it sounds so spiritual, but it's actually a disguise for them doing nothing. It's like the man that said he believed in prayer. So when the ship was going down, the captain says, "You believe in prayer? Well, you stay here because we've got one less life jacket than we do passengers." patience in terms of endurance, like the Bible teaches, is not about sitting back and doing nothing, waiting on God to do your job. It is about endurance. It is about forbearance. It is about doing what you know to do. Listen, and you keep on doing what you know you got to do until this situation turns out for your good. You're not going to give up. You're not going to surrender. You're not going to take an exit ramp. You're going to stay plugged in. You're going to stay focused. You're going to be patient to do what you got to do. Because in the end, it's going to pay off. And then number 3, impatience is a conscious surrender. See, sometimes we talk about losing our temper and losing our patience as though we had no control of it. And I know what happens when a woman loses her patience in an argument with their spouse, or a man loses his patience with his wife and they get mad. You know what we do? We blame that person. At least I do. I always blame Nikki for me losing control. But the fact is, and I've got to say this publicly to be honest, she didn't make me do that. I did that. There's some point in time when you lose your temper, there's a point in time where you walk up to that threshold and for a split second, listen, for a split second you have a choice. Get real with me. A split second you have a choice. It's like standing at the door of an airplane and you got a parachute on and you're right there and you think to yourself, for a split second, I can jump out and just lose control, or I can stay in the airplane and buckle up. And for that split second, you make a decision. Heck with it. Except some of you don't say heck. Boom! You jump out, you lose control. Patience is the same way. Impatience is a conscious surrender. That at some point in time, I choose at this moment to give up. And when impatience happens, one of 2 things happen. When a person becomes impatient, whenever you lose your patience, which I think I may have backwards. When you lose your patience, impatience, one of 2 things will happen when you lose your patience. Number 1, you quit. You just lose your. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done. Throw up your hands. I quit. Chances are, when adults do that, probably somewhere where you as a kid, you use that as a manipulative tactic with your parents to get what you want. Fine, I'm going to quit. Oh, it's okay, little Johnny. Saw a thing the other day. Kid's throwing a fit, and the dad's walking along saying, "It's okay, Mikey. It's okay, Mikey. It's going to be okay, Mikey. It's all right, Mikey. Just stay in control, Mikey. It's okay, Mikey. Just being real patient and everything." The lady walked up to the man and said, "Wow, I really appreciate how patient you are being with little Mikey." He said, "His name is Adam. I'm Mikey." Quit. We give up. I'm done. The other thing we do, and maybe it may happen together, but we have a tendency then to get angry. And the thing about anger that is born out of impatience, listen to this now, think. The thing about anger that's born out of impatience is it usually becomes long-term bitterness. There's a lot of people, maybe some people sitting here, that you're bitter and angry with God because at some point in time you didn't get what you wanted and you just gave up, and that anger usually isn't an outburst. Sometimes it is. You lose your patience with your kids or whatever, it becomes an outburst. But the thing about this is that outburst can become deep-rooted bitterness when it is motivated by impatience. Because somewhere along the journey you didn't get what you wanted quick enough of it, something happened. Now, let's get to this point. What can we do about it? Hopefully today you've learned a little bit about impatience. You've laughed a little bit. You've thought about your life. How many people have looked at your life and felt we've studied patience, that there's probably some impatience in your life, right? The important thing is this that I want you to know about patience. I want to underline and highlight this. It's not passive. It's not sitting back waiting on God. Patience is actively doing what you know to do. Read your Bible. Pray. Stay plugged into church. Do what you know you need to do over time. Now here are 10 practical things. They're all listed right there in your notes. You don't have to fill in any blanks. I didn't do that this morning. I put them right there in your notes. You can look at these and take them home. Let's run through them quickly. Number one, observe triggers and patterns that make you become impatient. That's like the number one thing. Become self-aware. Everybody say self-aware. Self-awareness, let me say this about self-awareness. Self-awareness is the root of personal growth. If you're not self-aware, you'll never grow. Not spiritually, not mentally, intellectually, physically. You got to become self-aware. Now, I didn't say self-conscious. Become self-aware. You got to know yourself. Know yourself. So here's the thing. Number one, start identifying triggers that make you lose your patience. When you're sitting at that traffic light, when someone's not going fast enough for you, when your wife or your husband, your children, whatever, find the triggers. Note the triggers. If you got to write them down, write them down. Take your cell phone. Stop and pull over first. Take your cell phone and write down the moments. Find those triggers. Because it's an amazing thing that when you identify the trigger, you identify that thing, the pattern, that thing that makes you become impatient. You identify that as your enemy. How many people know that half the battle is knowing who the enemy is? So identify those triggers and patterns that make you become impatient. Number two, accept delays and obstructions as inevitable. Obstructions and delays are inevitable and necessary parts of your faith journey. They're necessary. How many people know that CNN News didn't cover you when you swam across the pool? So why did they go to the beach and film and cover Diane and Naiad coming up out of the ocean? Why? Because she swam something that was a huge obstruction. Great things are done when men and mountains meet. See, obstructions and delays are necessary in your journey because it's through conquering them that you become a victor. Us complaining about obstructions and delays is like Ohio State running out on the field last night playing the Cal Bears and then complaining because those guys are trying to hit them. Complaining that there's actually someone trying to score against them, or complaining that they're wanting to score a touchdown and this guy's blocking me, he's tackling me. I didn't sign up for this. What do you think life is? Do you think life is just marching down? Okay, listen. Go to a high stadium, sneak in. Make sure you don't get caught. Take a football and run all the way from one end to the other. And then celebrate and act like you've done something special and see who cares. It only matters when there's obstructions and delays and people trying to stand in your way and enemies that are coming against you. That's why your life has been ordered by God as it is. God has faith in you probably more than you have in yourself. Be patient. Endure. You're going to conquer it. Number 3. Learn to stop. Don't react. When you get to the door and you're ready to jump out, stop. Learn to stop. There's an old AA thing that some of you that have been in recovery, you probably have seen this before. Another word for stop is halt. And that's an acronym. That means anytime you're hungry, angry, lonely, or tired, stop. Because you are vulnerable when you're hungry, physically. You're vulnerable when you're angry. You're vulnerable when you're lonely. You're vulnerable when you're tired. Stop. Get some rest, get something to eat, whatever you got to do. Especially when it comes to patience. When you get to the edge of the door and you just want to lose control, learn to identify those triggers. Learn to identify that at that moment, stop. Now look at the next one, number 4. This goes right along with it. Draw in, separate yourself from the situation, and become self-aware. And then I put this phrase in there, possess your souls. Where did that come from? It came from Jesus. In Luke chapter 21, verse 19, Jesus is talking about tribulations coming, and he says, be patient, because in patience you'll possess your soul. Now, what is your soul? It's three things. Somebody tell me. Mind, will, and emotions. Wouldn't it be nice to have your mind under control? Possess it. Wouldn't it be nice to have your emotions under control? Possess it. Wouldn't it be nice to take your will and have it under control? Possess it. Here's what Jesus says. In patience, you'll possess your soul. Now watch, here's how this works. It works whenever at the moment that we feel like we're just ready to give in, stop, back up. Look how I phrased this. Look how I worded this in number 4. Draw in, separate yourself from the situation, and start becoming self-aware. Now let me give you the moments in my life when I have to do this most often. It's when I'm traveling. In airports. Mike, remember when we went to Australia? We were trying to get to Australia. It was one of the most horrible, maybe the worst flight from here to Chicago. It's supposed to be like 50 minutes or whatever. It took us forever. We were late getting out of Columbus. I mean, how many people have ever you've traveled and this has happened to you? First of all, we're late getting out of Columbus. We have to make a connection flight in Chicago. That flies us to Los Angeles. Then we have the connector all the way down to Australia. You got to understand, once you miss a connector, you're going to be a day or two late. We're late getting out of Columbus. We got a snowstorm up in Chicago. The plane lands. We are literally in line with about 20 other planes waiting to get to the gate. We get to the gate, and guess what? They forgot to tell the gate crew to come and bring out that gate that comes up to the side. We sat there for 40 minutes. We had like 3-hour layover and missed the flight coming out of Chicago. And how many people, you get in a situation like that and you're waiting in line and the other person at the counter just says, there's nothing I can do, Mr. Piper. I'm sorry. It's like, you're not sorry. You're going to go home to your kids tonight. I'm stuck in an airport for 24 hours. And at those moments, it's when number 4, I've got to develop the ability to do this. Draw myself in, take a breath, possess myself. I'm not going to lose my control. It's going to be okay. You've got to learn how to possess yourself. Because you are in control, whether you realize it. Number 5. Remind yourself that God's in control and that this is part of His plan to bless you. I know that's hard. When you're sitting there and let's say you're on vacation and, how about this scenario? The cruise ship leaves at 10 o'clock and you've just been told that your flight has been delayed or your flight has been canceled and you're not going to reach Miami until that afternoon. And you've spent your money on the cruise ship, you bought these airline tickets, the airlines have failed to keep their bargain to get you there on time, and you're going to miss your vacation and miss your cruise. I don't even like to think about that. And isn't it pretty tough to admit at that moment that you're standing there looking at this person at the other end of the counter just shake their head and do this? It's hard to believe at that moment, yes, this is God's part of His plan to bless me. I'm blessed. I'm blessed going in. I'm blessed going out. That's why it's called faith, ladies and gentlemen. That's why we don't walk by sight. Number 6, examine the situation from every perspective. When I feel like I'm starting to lose my patience, if I can draw back and back up, remind myself that this is part of God's plan. Then what I try to do, I try to start looking at this situation from every angle. For me, if I look at things intellectually, it helps me to overcome them emotionally. I look at them intellectually, I think about all the alternatives, I think about what's going on, I think about what's not going on, what can I do about it, is there anything that I can do, etc., etc. Number 7. Know what's in and out of your control. You've got to know what's in and out of your control. And here's the key. When it's out of your control, release it. Some things are just out of your control. And I know if you're a control type person, you like to control things, this is hard for you. But there are times when that airplane, it doesn't matter what you do, it's not going to fly. It's late. You're not going to get there. It's out of your control. And it's at that moment where we have to implement our faith, the kind of faith I'm talking about. to understand these things are out of my control. However, there are some things in your control. What's in your control is how you're going to react to the situation. Number 8, break down big problems into smaller, bite-sized challenges and take on one situation at a time. This helps me in a lot of different ways. I learned to do this when I was about 15 years old because I would help my uncle roof houses. How many people remember those days? $2 an hour. Up on those hot roofs, and I would look at that long roof, and I would think, wow. You can get depressed in moments like that. You're carrying up those bundles of shingles, ladder. They didn't believe in using elevators and equipment in those days. They had us. There was no such thing as round bales, by the way. We had grandkids. We'd get up on the roof, or sometimes baling hay. I would look at that big field and all those hay bales, and I would think, this is going to take forever. And you'd get depressed in those moments. And I found a key when I was real young. You know how you bale a big field of hay? One bale at a time. You don't look down, you look at the next bale. Okay, I'm gonna get that one. And you pick up that bale and you put it on the wagon, and then you look at the next one. How you shingle a house? One shingle at a time. You put down one, you get it where you want, you look at the next one. Same thing's true in your life. Number 9. Ask yourself, what's the worst thing that can happen? I was doing that a lot when Mike and I were traveling to Australia, and I just thought to myself, what's the worst thing that can happen? Well, we're going to be a day late. Well, what happens if we're a day late? Well, you know what? The world's not going to end. My family's still going to be alive. No one's going to die. I'm going to be okay. And my grandkids won't care. So why am I worried about this? Why am I losing my impatience? And number 10, final thing. Focus your creative energy on formulating a plan B. Impatience and anger takes a lot of energy. Be honest with me, how many people have really got angry over something, and like in about 30 seconds you're going, you're about to have a heart attack. You got so angry that literally it stole probably about 3 hours of energy off your life. It's amazing, isn't it? How getting angry can wear you out. So what you're doing, you're expending energy uselessly. We've only got a limited amount of energy, so use your creative energy, not to get angry and impatient and yell and lose your temper. Use your creative energy to formulate a plan B. So what was happening with Mike and I when we were going to Australia and we were going to miss our flight, we just formulated a plan B. Said, well, we're going to do this, we're going to do this. We ended up getting to LA that day. We were there for a couple of days, and I was washing. What's that? We got free room aboard. We got free meals. We didn't have a lot of extra luggage. That's how I learned to do laundry in the sink. And you know what? I got a great story. You're getting more out of that story than had we made the flights, and we'd have missed the whole opportunity to actually talk about what we're talking about. Your life is ordered by God. Your faith is to believe that everything that's happening to you is going to turn out for your benefit. Don't lose your patience, okay? I want you to stand with me, everybody in this room, because we all need prayer right now. Everybody in this room is facing something. Everyone in this room has some challenge. Everyone in this room is going through something. Every one of us. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter how much money you make, what kind of car you drove in here today. There's something going on. Every one of us. Don't ever look at someone and think they have an easier life than you. They don't. They have the same life you do. Struggles, challenges, just at different degrees, different things. Right now, we need patience to endure. And I want you to bow your heads, and I want you to pray. I want you to surrender yourself. Let's talk this way. I want you to surrender yourself to God again today for His plan for your life. Go ahead and do that. Pray a prayer of surrender. God, if we just surrender ourselves to you again today. Your plan has twists and turns, but your plan ultimately is to bless me, and I trust you for that. What my kids are doing, my grandkids are doing, what my health is right now, what my situation, my finances, whatever it is, God, we believe you have a plan to bless us. Help us to endure. Surrender yourself to God. Surrender yourself to the situation. Let God have control of it. Now, ask God to help you endure, to give you forbearance. You're going to have patience to get through what you need to get through. Have patience. Get through it. Finish school. Finish your master's degree. Finish your bachelor's degree. Come on, get through it. You're going to make it. Persevere. God's got a blessing in store for you. God's got something good in store for you. God, I pray that we will surrender our life to you this morning, and we will persevere and make a determined effort today, a decision today, to continue to follow you until we know that this blessing has become sight. In Jesus' name, amen. Hey, everybody, before you sit down and praise God, just one time, clap your hands. God, we love you and we praise you today.